Good morning. Today we are continuing with our patriarchs in the Bible. So we're still working on the Genesis book. Know that next week we will not be focusing as hard on religion lessons because it's Catholic Schools Week. So we will be doing a lot of Catholic school activities. We talked about that this morning. A lot of those activities are going to come out of our religion time. So when we do our schedule, when you come to me next week, a lot of that time will be just for math. And in the afternoon, we will do our religion time with the fun activities we're doing for religion. So just know that next week is going to be a lot lighter with the religion. Just because we're celebrating being Catholic and at a Catholic school. All right, so we already did the first section. Thank you to my friends that are silent and listening respectfully. Our first section was about Abraham in beginning of Genesis. Then yesterday we read about Isaac getting tricked by Jacob, kind of weaseling his way in and getting Esau's blessing. So that was in Genesis chapter 27. Today we're going to continue with Jacob. And now Jacob gets tricked. Jacob tricked Esau into giving him his inheritance. We talked about that yesterday. And then he tricked Isaac into giving him the blessing. Now our title is Jacob tricked, and he marries the wrong sister. So we are on Genesis chapter 28. We're going to start off. Genesis chapter 28, verses 1 to 5. God bless technology. All right, Genesis chapter 28. If you are at home and do not have a Bible, I have it attached to the Google assignment. In class, chapter 28 starts out on page 58. Peyton and Nolan and Will, it needs to be quiet, please. So, page 58, chapter 28, verses 1 to 5. We're just reading a little bit of this chapter. Isaac therefore summoned Jacob and blessed him, charging him, "You shall not marry a Canaanite woman. Go now to Paddan Aram, to the home of your mother's father Bethuel, and there choose a wife for yourself from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fertile, multiply you that you may become an assembly of peoples. May God extend to you and your descendants the blessing of Abraham, so that you may gain possession of the land where you are residing, which he assigned to Abraham." Then Isaac sent Jacob on his way. He went to Paddan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel the Aramean, and brother of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob and Esau. So remember when we ended yesterday, Rebekah was saying, "I don't want my son to marry a Hittite woman." So now Isaac is telling Jacob, you need to go to a different land to marry somebody from over there. So don't marry these people, you need to marry this person. Thankfully now we understand that we shouldn't be looking at people with those differences and saying, "Oh, you can't marry that person because they're different from you." And we can accept those differences. Back then, it was very important that they, ladies, why are we passing notes in class? Gabby, bring it here. I've been catching way too many people passing notes. We're done. I don't want to see any notes being passed in classes. Your focus should be on the lesson, on what is being talked about. Top blue tray. And you need to be respectful to the teachers or the person talking. We're done passing notes for any reason. So Jacob has gone to the house of Laban to find a wife amongst those people because they were deemed acceptable by his parents. So now our second reading for today is Genesis. Seriously, stop talking. This is all being recorded for people to hear, Peyton and Nolan. Go to chapter 29. We're going to read verses 1 to 30. So, chapter 29. Now, I had somebody ask me earlier what those numbers mean. So, that first number here before that colon, that's your chapter in the book. So, that's the big number. And then these small numbers are the verses. So those are the little numbers as we're reading. That's how I knew where to stop after that paragraph in chapter 28, because that's where the 5 was. I stopped when I hit the 6. Those are the verses. So that's what those numbers mean. You look at the little numbers in the chapters. So we're going to read 1 to 30 in chapter 29 and find out what happens when Jacob gets to Laban's house and how he gets tricked. Arrival in Haran. After Jacob resumed his journey, he came to the land of the Kedemites. Looking about, he saw a well in the open country with 3 flocks of sheep huddled near it, for flocks were watered from that well. A large stone covered the mouth of the well. When all the shepherds were assembled there, they could roll the stone away from the mouth of the well and water the sheep. Then they would put the stone back again in its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where are you from?" "We are from Haran," they replied. Then he asked them, "Do you know Laban, son of Nahor?" "We do," they answered. He inquired further, "Is he well?" "He is," they answered, "and here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." Then he said, "There is still much daylight left. It is hardly the time to bring the animals home. Water the sheep and then continue pasturing them." They replied, "We cannot until all the shepherds are here to roll the stone away from the mouth of the well. Then we can water the flocks." While he was still talking with them, Rachel arrived with her father's sheep, for she was the one who tended them. As soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of his mother's brother Laban, and the sheep of Laban, he went, rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well, and watered Laban's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's relative, Rebekah's son. So she ran to tell her father. When Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him. After embracing and kissing him, he brought him to his house. Jacob then repeated to Laban all these things, and Laban said to him, "You are indeed my bone and my flesh." So when they're saying that they're kissing each other, I know in Italy, when I see Mr. Gambino's relatives, in a lot of countries in Europe, they kiss on the cheek as a greeting. So instead of just giving a hug when you see somebody you haven't seen for a while, you'll give them a kiss on each cheek. Okay, so when they're talking about kissing them, that's what they're talking about. It's just the greeting. And if you need to step in the hall because you have to get yourself together, you can do that, but get yourself together. Marriage to Leah and Rachel. After Jacob had stayed with him for a full month, Laban said to him, "Should you serve me for nothing just because you are a relative of mine? Tell me what your wages should be." Now Laban had 2 daughters. The older was called Leah, the younger Rachel. Leah had dull eyes, but Rachel was shapely and beautiful. Because Jacob loved Rachel, he answered, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban replied, "It is better to give her to you than to another man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, yet they seemed to him like a few days because of his love for her. So he's working for free, but he's going to get to marry the daughter that he wants to marry. So it's not really for free. He has to work for 7 years, and then he's able to marry the girl that he wants. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife that I may consummate my marriage with her, for my term is now completed." So Laban invited all the local inhabitants and gave a banquet. At nightfall, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he consummated the marriage with her. Laban assigned his maidservant Zilpah to his daughter Leah as her maidservant. In the morning, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, "How could you do this to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Why did you deceive me?" So Jacob didn't check to make sure that it was Rachel that he was marrying. I don't know, maybe her face was covered, maybe the lights were off when they got married. I'm not sure, but for some reason, he didn't realize that he was marrying Leah instead of Rachel. So maybe she had a veil over her. You know how a lot of brides have a veil covering their face? So he didn't find out until the morning when she didn't have the veil on, and he was actually looking at her that it was the wrong sister. In the morning, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, "How could you do this to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Why did you deceive me?" Laban replied, "It is not the custom in our country to give the younger daughter before the firstborn. Finish the bridal week for this one, and then the other will also be given to you in return for another 7 years of service with me." So back in the biblical times, they could have more than one wife. So he's going to work another 7 years to get the wife that he wants. Because way back then, they did things differently. Jacob did so. He finished the bridal week for the one, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as a wife. Laban assigned his maidservant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maidservant. Jacob then consummated his marriage with Rachel also, and he loved her more than Leah. Thus he served Laban for another 7 years. So he worked 7 years and was able to marry Leah. Then he had to work another 7 years to marry Rachel. So yes, he did get to have 2 wives. He was tricked. He only wanted to marry Rachel. That's the wife that he wanted, but he was tricked. Why? Why did Laban trick him? Nick? Shh.
Because it was in like his country that they married the older ones first and the younger ones.
Yes. So think about Esau and Jacob. Esau was supposed to get the inheritance. He was supposed to get the blessing. Somebody asked me yesterday, well, what about the girls? What if there's no boys? What do the girls get? Well, they get to get married off. Okay. So the firstborn girl gets to get married first. So my older sister got married before me. Makes sense because she's 5 years older than me. But if she hadn't gotten married, I would have had to wait to get married until she got married first. Then nobody else gets married. I know. So thankfully times have changed and we don't go with the firstborn rules anymore. So let's bring it together. Let's look at today's assignment. Arrange these story elements in their proper order from 1st through the 5th. So look to see and look back at your reading, what happened 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I do not have an activity that goes with this lesson. So it's a short lesson today. So quietly read back through and put them in order. For my friends at home, for my friends at home, we hope you are doing well and that you are feeling okay, and we see you next week. Have a wonderful weekend.